episode 117, Maintaining Financial Stability Through Big Life Changes.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are doing a request that I actually have been putting off because it is such a huge topic. But I finally feel like we can weave it in and make it as accessible as possible. And I think it's super relevant right now, and that's big life changes.
Yes, whether that's a career change or going through a divorce or moving or kids, changes in how many kids you have or don't have, kids leaving, kids arriving, so many changes.
So whatever your big life changes, we have a few specific articles, but we are going to make this as accessible as possible for everyone while catering to the ones that were kind of our biggest requests.
Yeah. But first, our sponsors.
Dun,
dun, dun. We just want to put sound noises with everything that we do.
Know. We are our own soundtrack.
The Frugal Friends Workbook. You all, this is big news. Our show has always been about coming together around a shared desire to save more, consume less, and do great things financially. And we have been working our hearts out to bring you something that helps you do that better. And it is called the Frugal Friends Workbook. We worked too hard on the inside to come up with a better name. The Frugal Friends Workbook can be completed on your own, but it's created to be gone through in pairs or small groups. It's a 6 week long challenges that will help you become more frugal in various aspects of your life. And it launches August 7th. And you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. But we just want to kind of build the hype.
Yes. Oh man, we are so excited for you guys to get your little digital hands on this. And
tiny little digit fingers.
Yes. So it's really exciting and we can't wait. This episode is also brought to you by Plot Twists, specifically the great Instagram post I saw the other day that said, "You've got every right to give them a plot twist. If things are not working in your life, or if you want to go a different direction, you don't owe anybody else your story. You can just give them a plot twist." And whoever posted that, I could not find the original post to give you credit.
Wow.
But thank you for that.
I like that reframe of doing something different. It's just a plot twist.
It's a plot twist.
And it's what everybody loves in a good book.
Mm-hmm.
Make your life a good book.
Your life is a good book. And so plot twists, that's what we're talking about today. And so both of our articles are from Forbes, because really there's no articles about just general financial steps to take during a big life change.
Now Jen, what you need to write on.
I know. It's super, I guess maybe nobody is searching for that, but people are asking for it. So this first article is specifically about divorce. We had a lot of people in the Frugal Friends community kind of asking for financial tips to get stability after a divorce. And so we are going to try and pick out the ones that are best, that we think are best out of the 7 must-do steps for women who want financial stability post-divorce.
Mm-hmm. So this article is written to very specific, right, to women post-divorce, but we're hoping to be able to pull these tips out that can be helpful for whoever is listening and might be walking through a divorce, whether male or female, as well as any big life change. A lot of what's listed here can be useful for us in any kind of dramatic shift in our lives and what we need to be considering specifically financially.
Yeah. So what were your favorites, Jill?
Yeah, so I like how they pointed out just updating all of your accounts. And it sounds mundane and it sounds really simple even, but it's really important that we make sure that all of our accounts are updated, meaning that correct names are on the accounts, correct addresses are on the accounts. And that would include bank, utility, insurance, credit cards, vehicles, schools, titles on cars and houses, and all of your financial institutions like, life insurance, 401k, pensions, IRA, all of these things, which I would say is even a good thing to edit every couple of years, making sure that you've got the right addresses and names and that the accounts are how you want them to be. Eric and I, we do joint accounts. So whether you want to make sure that your accounts are joint or you want to separate those accounts, I think it's important that we make sure everybody has access to or doesn't have access to the accounts that they need to.
Yeah, it can sound really overwhelming when you're saying like this and this and this and this, but really all you need to do is sit down and go through your transactions on your, debit, credit, whatever, and go through those transactions that are associated with like auto billing or have a number or an address associated with them. And that's how you will find all of those things, write them all down, and then just go through like a checklist and make sure they're all up to date. And so you do this whenever you move, and it's just really important to do that, especially if you're changing your name after a divorce. You'll need like a new social security card, passport, all those things that you would probably put off, but it's definitely better to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And on this website, on the Forbes article, they do have a checklist. So if you wanted to grab that off of this article, feel free to do that. And I do want to recognize that there is, while we are primarily talking about finances as it relates to big life transitions, emotions, and we will sprinkle this throughout this entire episode, but I think it's also important to note that our emotional health and our mental health play a big role in these big life changes. And it can feel really overwhelming and really daunting to be doing all of these tasks that we're not accustomed to doing. It's not a part of our daily life, to be changing names on accounts, to be tracking all of the things that we just listed off. And so to break it down into bite-sized pieces, it would be recommended. And like Jen just said, here's the steps. Go through your transactions, write it down, and one by one, tick those off and make sure that they align with what your lifestyle is or is going to be. And I will say too, that I think setting our hands to something, having something to do when we are in the midst of something that is maybe really emotionally draining or exhausting or really difficult or has a lot of unknowns to it, it can help us to feel like we have some power and control somewhere. And so finding those small areas like this, updating accounts, can bring us a sense of, okay, this is something that I have within my power to bear influence on, and I'm going to do that thing. And so these are just some things from my own social work perspective, from a therapist, counselor perspective, that even can help. So we do better just facing it than pushing it off, especially if we're able to break it down into manageable pieces.
Yeah, definitely listen to Jill on everything she has to say on this episode. This is definitely her area of expertise. So she's going to have a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And
thanks, Jen.
Of course.
Listen up, folks.
And the other day I had to call my bank, actually to get an overdraft fee taken off because I'm a human and we don't keep a lot of money in our mortgage, the account we pay our mortgage from. And so I overdraft. And so I was like, ugh, we're in the middle of a pandemic and I'm going to be forever on the phone. It literally took me less than 10 minutes. And so a lot of the things on your list that you're going to have to change, you may think like, ugh, this is going to take me all day. I'm just going to wait till tomorrow. A lot of these things will take 10 minutes. And so just do it like on your lunch break, first thing in the morning, or like when you get like before you go to bed, something like that. Just block out that 10 minutes. Some will take longer, but don't get overwhelmed with the length of time that these things will take.
And it feels super empowering to just even check one of these things off to say, okay, I did that. And to me, these items are clutter.
Yeah.
And it feels like a messy room to me. And as we can kind of just start tidying up and clearing some of the clutter with these lingering pieces, it really helps.
Yeah. And then after so make this list and start checking it off, then you're going to want to develop a comprehensive financial plan. That's the next on the list. So your finances have predictably changed a lot if you are going from 2 incomes or maybe even no incomes, and then you're still having to pay the same amount for children. You've got college to look forward to. So you have to rethink your entire financial plan. And then also, if this is a divorce situation, start to figure out like what your co-parenting and financial situation there is going to be too. And so highly recommend for this getting a fee-only financial planner. So not one that would deal with your stocks and bonds that they take a commission, but somebody who is a fee-only fiduciary. So you will pay something up front for their advice. That is, you will have to go in prepared. But because they're already getting paid up front, they're going to do everything in their power. So in the time that you have together, they are working in your best interest. They're not working off a commission. So they're not giving you advice that gets them paid more. So definitely when you go to make a financial plan like this, not everybody needs a financial planner, but in situations like big life changes where you're figuring out stuff like this, that would be the instance where one could be in your best interest.
Yeah. Another tip that stood out to me on this list, and we're not going to go through all 7, just kind of the highlights, is a team. Having a team around us. And so, Jen, you just mentioned this fee-only financial advisor, and I would also add a counselor or therapist to that, and they also list vocational counselor if maybe your transition involves getting back into the workforce after years of being out of it. And what is that going to look like? Or a career change, which we're going to talk about more in the next article. And these don't have to be something that we pay for. Of course, that's kind of what this article is alluding to. But I think that we can find these people and these experts within our own networks or within our friend groups to be able to come around and support us. I mean, certainly a counselor, you're going to have to pay. And I would encourage that, especially if going through a divorce situation that, again, like I said, bears a lot of weight on us emotionally and mentally. And it is important that we care for ourselves through that time, but also to get kind of an interdisciplinary group of people around us, somebody who can help advise us on revamping our resume, someone who can be caring for us mentally, maybe somebody who can advise us spiritually, friends who we can talk to. All of these people are necessary. So while we are primarily focusing on finances, we recognize that transition impacts our whole personhood, and we need to take all of that into consideration in order to move forward well towards well-being in all aspects of our lives. So I love this team approach and identifying the people that you're going to need to have in your court, in your circle around you. And communicate that to them. Okay, over the next year, I'm going to need this kind of support. And I see that you're really good at that. Could you help me in this area? And that could even include somebody who is good at list making. If that's not you, but you know to kind of change all of your accounts and do all of the nitty gritty clutter type stuff, but you've got a friend who's phenomenal at that, fantastic. Have them come over once a week and do this. And I will say something about transition that I think shocks a lot of people, and this hurts. Like, brace yourselves. This will sting a little bit to hear, but it's important to know. Transition and our adjustment to it takes about 6 to 12 months, which is shocking to a lot of people. I think we think, okay, transition is just about as long as change takes. Like, I move from one place to another and it takes me 3 weeks to figure out where my toothbrush is. And that's about the time that it takes me to adjust. No, in reality, and depending on the level of acuity of the transition, we're more likely looking at about a year of some adjustment for that dust to settle. And we start to feel like, okay, I can catch my breath again. Yeah, that sucks to know, but at the same time, it can help us prepare our expectations, our grace on ourselves, our ability to kind of put people in our court to know this is for the long haul. This is for the next year at least of my life that it's going to take, that I need to check off all of these things on my list, that I need this level of support around me. So prepare yourself for quite a good amount of transition time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I felt that so real when having my first child. He's just now a year old, and I didn't feel like until he was 9 months old that I actually found my life again. Like, I found normalcy again. It took like 9 months. And so that's, I mean, maybe a little extreme for some people, but yeah, look, I thought that once you had a kid, once you got out of the like screaming newborn phase, then you're good. Then you're a mom and you get it. But like, that was not my experience at all.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Everything's adjusting. Your relationship with your spouse is adjusting. Your relationship with this new child, relationships with friends and extended family members, the way that you approach your job, how you handle finances, like all of it is
Yeah.
all of it is changing, and it impacts our whole personhood with any of these transitions that we're talking about. So I think that can help us in knowing how to approach and kind of preparing ourselves for a bit of a marathon rather than a sprint.
Yeah. The greatest lesson in this that I've ever been taught is have the emotional intelligence to ask for help.
Mm.
You know who taught me that?
Who taught
Anthony
you that,
from
Jen?
Queer Eye.
Nice.
Yes. So it's,
Oh, you love that show.
I do. The last thing on this article that I'm going to say, and I forgot to mention earlier that it says, so when we're talking about accounts, also you need to change your beneficiaries. So that was something that I forgot, but is to work on your credit score. So depending on the camp that you're in, on how you feel about credit scores, when you are going through a big life change, that could include a number of things. You will most likely be taking out a new mortgage at some point. You could have the need to take out a car loan or something, and you will save money on those things by having a better credit score. So it's better to have it and not need it than to not have it and need it. So one way I think of a credit score, it's not like a I love debt score, it's an anti-debt score. It's a test for, okay, how much credit can a bank give me and how little of it can I use? And so if you think of a credit score like that as like a test, then you can build your credit faster. So definitely start with getting your credit report from all three bureaus, and you can do that for free once a year from annualcreditreport.com. And then look at the way credit scores are weighted, and sometimes they can get a little confusing. So really your main goal is to just pay off your credit card every month in full. So don't worry about your ratio of usage or your oldest account, stuff like that. Just worry about putting a purchase on the credit card and paying it all off. And so
Yeah.
if you do that long enough, then you will build a credit score. So just think of that one simple thing. I know credit experts are going to hear this and they're going to be like, there's so many other things. But if you're just looking to do one thing, do that.
Mm-hmm. And all of this, as we say, is for entertainment. This is our opinion. We are going through articles. We're not lawyers, attorneys, financial planners, none of that. We are the frugal friends.
Mm-hmm.
Know what you're getting.
I do a lot of reading about personal finance. And so I can't say any more than I'm not an expert, because for the first year of the show, that's what I said. But we are not certified in any financial.
Yeah, we're not divorce attorneys. We're not, any of those titles. I am a licensed counselor. So, you've got some experts on the show in different ways, but we're not all things to all people.
Right. Don't give us a 1-star review for not being divorce attorneys. Please.
Please and thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's that article. Anything else you want to say there, Jen?
No, I think we're ready to move on to our next Forbes article. And so this one is specifically for career change, but again, we'll make it as blanket as possible. And it's preparing financially for a career change. So the last one's kind of like what you want to do after. And this one is kind of what you want to do to prepare. And maybe we should have switched these, but hindsight. So what'd you like about this one, Jill?
So, you know me. It basically talks about budgeting at the very beginning.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. They didn't use that word specifically, but that's what I'm going to say that they meant. Really understanding your costs and your needs and your wants. You really can't make an educated decision about what you want to do next unless you know what money you spend and what money you bring in, and whether or not you can make that change or how long it's going to take before you are able to make that change. So what this literally is making a list of what do I spend? Where does my money go? Breaking it down on food, shelter, clothing, transportation, medical care, basic necessities, entertainment. How much do I just spend frivolously? And making sure that you understand, what do I bring in and what do I spend on? So that when you look at changing careers or making big moves or big life transitions, what am I going to need to make sure that I am accounting for? What do I need to make sure that I need to make every month in order to continue to provide for my needs? Of course, that can include cutting expenses, and we'll get to that if you realize that, I'm not going to make as much, or there's going to be a few months of kind of some limbo where I might be kind of living off of savings, then okay, we can also look at cutting expenses, but we just need to start with what are we spending? Where's our money going? And writing it out, making a visual. Yes, you have to make a visual. I cannot tell you how many times I sit in my office with a client. Well, I sit in my office and I do telehealth online. Anyhow, people say, it's up here. It's up in my mind. I'll think about that this week. And then week after week, I forgot to do that thing. Yes, because you need to write it down. I really care for my clients. And that's the biggest pet peeve there is. And it's not even that big of a pet peeve. But I do need to tell you that you have to write things down. You have to create a visual because of so many reasons that I won't even get into all of it, but it helps to connect our brain wiring. It helps us to realize what it is that's even going through our minds. It gets us out of our bodies. It doesn't create as much clutter in our thought life. And then it just helps us to remember what it is that we're even talking about or doing. So yes, write it down.
And that's the budget. That's that visual. Yeah. And so then to piggyback off that, is to save, save, save. That's the next one. And so saving once, because 8 times out of 10, you're going to see a big life change coming. And so you're going to be able to save in that, short period or long period, what have you. But those 2 other times, they just happen to you and you can't see them coming. And so you need to also be saving for that. So starting to budget now and starting to beef up that emergency fund. And that's why they say 3 to 6 months of expenses. And depending on how vulnerable your life is to big changes, you need to be on the bigger, the 6-month side of that, just in case. And sometimes it's not always big changes happening to you that you can't control. Sometimes they're big changes you want to walk through. So the author was saying that she left her profession to do something else she wanted to do. And then savings can also allow you to choose to take sabbaticals or periodically cut to part-time work. And it allowed her to change to a new career. So it's not always about saving for something neutral or something worst case scenario. It's also about saving for big changes that you want to happen.
It's just good to have that buffer so that there is freedom. And we talk about that all the time with a frugal lifestyle. It creates freedom for us to be able to do what we want. And part of then, as we tease that out and the tangibles of that is that we are cognizant of putting away money for the unforeseeable and the foreseeable. But either way, we need to have a little bit of a buffer so that we can feel the freedom to do that and not feel so stuck where we're at.
Yeah.
So also on here is to make sure that your new career path can cover your costs. And, we mentioned that already. That's part of already having the budget, already having your expenses listed out, to be tracking your spending, to be cutting your expenses, and then make sure, all right, is what I have set my sights on next, whether that's career or moving or you name it, kids moving out of the house. Can this new change, will I still have these costs covered as a result of that? And if not, that could mean, okay, further slashing the budget. That could mean, okay, that means that I can't make this transition for a couple more months yet, or I need to get a little bit more creative on where my big spending is. Maybe that's housing or transportation. And is there some wiggle room there in what you're choosing to do on kind of your 4 pillars and being able to decrease those expenses?
Yeah. The last thing that I liked from this article, and I think is just super wise, not just like financially, but in general, it says to keep a toe in your old profession. But I think in general, it just means keeping your options open. So when I changed my career, it was right at when my licensure was up. And so I had the option to save a couple $100 and just not renew my license because I was switching to a new career. But I chose to renew that license and invest, that money into that just to keep my options open. And then I was listening to the radio this morning, and this girl was moving in with her boyfriend, and she made sure that she had enough money in her savings account just in case she needed to break that lease or leave or, pay some money to keep her options open. So it's having that savings and having that wisdom to know what do I need to keep from my own life just to keep my options open for a little while. You don't need to straddle the then and now forever. But until you're sure that this life change is solidified and you're good. So like Jill said, 6 months to a year, then just try to keep your options open as much as feasibly possible.
And that's the age-old wisdom of don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
right? And which is why it can be helpful for us to already have some side hustles and to be
Mhm.
engaging in maybe even different types of hobbies, because who knows where those things can go from there, or to even keep you afloat during a big transition, again, whether foreseeable or unforeseen.
Yeah. And I mean, there is something we can see every episode.
You see
It's
it coming. You just don't
10
know
times out
exactly
of
when.
10. It's
The
the
bill
bill of
of
the
the week.
week.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Music plays. Okay. So we are going to prepare you for next week. We're going to start something new. And you know how we have our first sponsor? Well, it turns out it's easier to get sponsors for the middle of your show than the beginning. So we're going to be adding something new next week. And to prepare you for that, we're just going to remind you again. The Frugal Friends Workbook launches August 7th. So if you want to be the first name when we send out emails for when that's ready, then go ahead and go to frugalfriendspodcast.com/workbook, and you can enter your email and you will be the first to know that Friday morning when it is available.
Yay! And also really well done, Jen, in preparing people for that transition.
Trying to. All
The
right.
big life transition.
Hey ladies, this is Erica from New Jersey. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for providing us with great content. I truly enjoy your show and look forward to listening each and every week. On that note, I wanted to let you both know that my bill of the week includes not one, but 2 different credit cards that I was able to pay off thanks to the stimulus check that came in earlier this month. I am blessed to still be working during this pandemic and earning my regular pay, so I made sure the money was spent wisely to help with my lingering debt, which unfortunately I'm still working towards paying off each month, but taking it day by day. Anyways, I figured you guys would be proud. I just wanted to let you know that I couldn't have done it without you, so thanks so much for always keeping me on track. Stay safe and be well. Bye.
Oh my gosh, we are so proud.
Yes! I'm doing that.
We're
thing with
doing our
my
little
hands.
celebration victory dance for you and the YouTube video. That's so
Erica, thanks so much for calling in and sharing. You're right. We are proud of you, proud for you. So happy to be with you on this journey. And my goodness, what a good use of some extra unexpected money that has come in and the ability to pay off debt with that and not need that to cover groceries or other expenses, and yet still make a wise choice with it. And it sounds like it is creating so much freedom for you that we can all just live vicariously through and hopefully motivate ourselves to make wise decisions with our money in whatever stage of life we're in right now. So well done, Erica from New Jersey.
Yes, and we hope that you are also staying well up there. And we hope everybody is staying well, but we know how some areas are more impacted. So yeah, definitely glad you are well enough to call and share that bill with us. And if you are well or ill, we'll take any.
However you are.
Yeah, however you are, leave us your bill of the week at frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill, and we will celebrate with you, whatever that bill is.
And now it's time for
Lightning round. Yes. So we are going to share with you some real life realness. And I'm going to snap because as you know, I've been rewatching all the seasons of Queer Eye. So I'm like very, very into this realness right now.
Very snappy.
Yeah. And we are going to share with you kind of how we financially navigated a few big life changes, or, one or a few, however it comes up, however the conversation goes.
Yeah. So my big life change that's happening currently is a move to Florida. So for those of you who know or don't know, here it is. This is Jill, moving with my husband, Eric, from Pennsylvania to Florida, because I talk enough about how I really can't stand the cold weather in Pennsylvania. And so we're just doing it. We're going to move to Florida.
Yes.
We have bought a house and we are less than 30 days away from moving into that house. So we're kind of a little bit smack dab in the middle of a transition. I know that there's and that's the funny thing about transition, is that there's so many different points to it. So many different almost middle points of transition. So we're kind of in some of that middle. And knowing that there's a lot ahead, but some of that I can't do yet. And just kind of preparing myself mentally and emotionally for that. For me, this is an exciting transition. So I think it's also worth noting, this is a side note, sorry, I can't help myself, what kind of life transition you're in. Whether that is perceived by you as positive or negative or a bit of both, and to not let other people dictate what that is for you. I know sometimes we can think like, oh, having a baby, that you just must be so excited. And for some people it's, well, yes and no, or you name it. In any kind of life transition, we can assume what that is for somebody else, but it may not be. So recognizing that, yes, we have exciting life changes, and we also have really awful, terrible, traumatic, crisis-filled transitions that happen as well. And the way that we approach either one of those does require different things, different levels of support. Anyhow, for me, moving to Florida is exciting. So I recognize that, and I allow myself to kind of feed off of that excitement and the hope of things that is to come, and starting to plan for what life is going to look like then. And that has been enjoyable, and I think has helped with some of the unknowns. Something that I've also done, and I am a list maker. Thankfully, this comes naturally to me. I like it. I find it helpful, but I have created a Google Sheets form of all of the things that need to happen. And I've color coded it. It's funny because I'm not incredibly type A. This will sound very type A to you. I am a fly by the seat of my pants with a color coded list kind of person.
I love everything about you.
Thanks, Jen. Same to you. So I have created like a what needs to happen before we move. And I think that's purple. Some things that are more finance related or selling of things, and that's in yellow. And then things that need to happen after the move. I don't know. That's probably like some other fun color. And then more long-term things that I'm hoping for, because I'm realizing all these things are flying through my head constantly of like, oh, I got to do this. And it might be so small and minor, but it's something that's going to need to get done. And now I've got a place to put it, but it's also not, oh, here's everything. I've got it separated out as far as when does that thing need to happen, so that when something pops into my head, but it doesn't need to happen for like 6 months from now, fine, it's on the list. And at least then I can say, and this is a therapy term, containment, so that I don't get sucked into this vortex of clutter that's going on in my head. I can know that's on the list. I don't need to think about that right now. I will do that when on the list when the time comes. And that really helps to be able to inhale, exhale throughout this process. But yes, a list. Written down.
That's a great tip. I am trying to make, I do consider myself type A, and I'm currently trying to figure out a method for list making because I have so many projects that I'm working on at a given time. I am really cluttered with places that I'm keeping them all down. So I'm trying to figure out how to best contain them. And I think I've been trying like different project management apps. And I was like, maybe a Google Sheet is just where I need to be.
You know me. I'm just all about making my own.
Yes, you do. For me, so this is kind of like a two-parter, or even a three-parter. I don't know. So I went through a few career changes. And actually, when we were thinking about this lightning round, I was like, nothing big has happened in my life. And then Jill was like, wait, you did a total 180 career change. And I did.
Can't believe you forgot about that.
I
That's
know.
how
Well,
entrenched you are into your new life.
It seems like another life. So I mentioned earlier that I made a career change. I was a licensed acupuncturist for over 5 years. That's what my master's is in. And that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I had very much had my dream job. And so after paying off our debt and getting into personal finance, I realized that that is also something I was super passionate about. And it became this mental transition from, okay, I have my dream job, I'm set, to have I peaked at 25? And then discovering this new thing and realizing, okay, maybe I haven't peaked. Maybe there's more for me. But it was I had a big like existential crisis when I moved from becoming an acupuncturist to becoming a full-time writer. And so but I did it in stages. So I initially turned down a job to write for the Penny Hoarder. And then maybe a year or two later is when I accepted it, because that's how long it kind of took me to mentally get there. And so also don't let people tell you how long you need to make your transition. Like I said before, you definitely don't want to live with one foot in the past and one foot in the present. But if it takes you a while to make a transition, then give yourself the grace to take that time. I needed the time, and I'm so happy that I did leave my job, and I don't regret those years that I worked there at all. But my world has been opened up so much by making this change. And it wasn't a scary financial change for us. It was actually really good financially. So that one was more of an emotional change. But then a year into it, they laid off half of their staff, and I made another change to a freelance financial writer. So that was more of an unexpected and negative change because I lost my health insurance and I was maybe 4 or 6 weeks away from giving birth. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't just a big change where we had to do a lot of things like, paperwork to get on a different insurance. And thankfully, Travis had the option of health insurance through his work. But we were also in a time crunch to do it because we had to get that whole thing switched over before I gave birth. So I would say I learned a lot about taking the time to make your changes, but also it can be done very quickly if you need it to be done.
I love how you maintained both acupuncture and personal finance writing, and even worked under another company for a time before kind of finding your feet to do it yourself. I think that was such a wise bootstrapping way of doing it. And that doesn't always work out for everyone, but it is something to keep in mind of what are the steps that I could take to get to this goal rather than just completely diving in head first if that feels like, oh, that's a big risk or that could mean a lot of sacrifice. Is there a way to kind of scale it back a bit and slowly but surely make that shift?
Yeah, that's a great point, because when I left acupuncture, so after we paid off our debt, we did 10, 5, and 1 year life and financial plans. So we looked at where we wanted to be in a year from now, 5 and 10, and we looked at all the areas of our life and our finances that it would take to get there. Has that changed? completely. It's changed completely. But without that initial planning, then I wouldn't have been able to see those steps on the journey as actually steps to get to where I want to be, which is working for myself. So this is actually being a freelance writer for other websites is still a step on the journey to me working full-time in Frugal Friends and Modern Frugality. And so I took the Financial Freedom Planner, which is a planner I sell in Modern Frugality, and we went through that. And so I was able to see, like, do I want to be doing the same job in the same place at the same pay for 10 more years? And that is and that's the trigger. That was the question I needed to ask to start making the change. And so that looked like, okay, I'd like to work under somebody in this new profession. And then I view the firing as a blessing, because who knows if I would have had the courage to leave on my own to start freelancing if I wasn't pushed. So that was just a blessing to be pushed into that. But it's just another step on, okay, so now I'm at home, I'm where I want to be, but I still can get other income from people who have it while I'm working on building my own. So financial planning is like goal planning is so important.
And who would have thought that that would now be perceived as a blessing for you, which I think is something I want to highlight in what you're saying for anybody who is in a difficult transition right now, maybe forced or unseen, or is a really difficult type of transition, to hold on to hope. Certainly do some of these things that can help to put some power back into yourself and on your plate, and be caring for yourself in the different ways that we've talked about, but also recognize that your perspective on your situation right now will most likely be different 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now. And we're not quite sure how that story is going to unfold, but it can be true that the best is yet to come for you, even as you're walking through something very difficult. So it's easy to look back now and say, that was such a great thing. It did not feel that way at the time, but how incredible that you can say, wow, I'm grateful for the push that gave me and what I have developed into as a result of that. Resilience does come, if we let it, out of very difficult situations. And so if you are able to push through, to take the necessary steps, to not lose hope of enjoyable life and well-being, in seasons, it comes and goes, you will build resilience. Part of that is gratitude, choosing gratitude in that process.
So well said. That's a great ending to this episode.
There it is. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening to us and for your suggestions on these episodes. We really hope that this was helpful for our Frugal Friends community and everyone else who's just finding us now.
Absolutely.
And we want to thank you so much for your kind reviews on iTunes and Stitcher, like this one. So it happens to be 5 stars, and they say, love it. It comes from Coupon Kate. This podcast is keeping my spirits up during this crazy quarantine time, while teaching me some frugal tips I haven't done yet. I love the episode on side hustles because it's not the same as everyone else's lists. You girls rock, and I'm addicted. I can't wait to recommend this to my friends. Thanks so much, Coupon Kate. It's so good to hear that we're providing some refreshing content on even topics that are talked about so often. So yeah, that's encouraging. And these reviews, for those of you who have listened to a handful of episodes and really understand the vibe, to be able to give a review that is helpful for others to know what to expect out of these types of, out of our podcast.
Yeah. Don't think everything that is said or needs to be said has been said, because sometimes really good reviews get pushed to the bottom and we need them said again. So think about what got you to listen to this show and just say it again, because it really does help, especially with starting to get advertisers on the show, so that I don't have to, that's one thing on my plate taken off, that helps us a lot.
And to
it
be able to
doesn't-
continue
yeah,
to provide this for free.
yeah.
We
So
never, ever want to charge our listeners.
we will never charge for
Yes.
this. And we just
Yes.
want to make some money so that I can stop freelancing. Remember, steps in my life, help me
Yes.
get there. Help me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And so also we thank our friends who share these episodes, because that also helps me get to the next stage in my life. So we are rewarding all of our friends who share and review, and every 5 tags and reviews we get, we give away a $10 Amazon gift card. So keep doing that. Help me.
Yeah.
Just help me.
And if you do leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, send us a screenshot of that review to frugalfriendspodcast@gmail.com. Tag us on social media. Do both. You'll be entered into a drawing. Possibly get a $10 Amazon gift card.
Woo woo.
Bye.
Bye. So I really wanted to mention another Queer Eye story during the episode, but I feel like I'd made enough Queer Eye references. But I was just rewatching season 5, and it's the episode with the guy he's in a wheelchair and he runs a nonprofit called Disabled But Not Really. And before he was paralyzed, he was this like horrible person. And then after being in the wheelchair for a while, he like decided to like change his life for like him and his daughter. And so now he's this like fitness professional in a wheelchair. He can climb a rope with his arms in his wheelchair, with his wheelchair strapped to him. And so he's just this completely different person. And now he views when he got shot and paralyzed as a blessing, like because it changed his life and he's a completely different person, completely better person.
Goosebumps. People
Yeah.
are amazing.
Oh my
People are
God.
absolutely amazing. But that's the thing. I think there's choices in that, because the same thing could happen to another person and it just spirals into complete destruction. And I think when we talk about, oh, I want tangibles, and just talking theory isn't enough. Well, theory and perspective and what we choose to set our minds on does actually really shift the trajectory of our lives. Like choosing to do something different, to change his life, to choose gratitude, to have the perspective that this awful thing that happened to him physically is a blessing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And he was even able to confront the man who shot him and
Wow.
like at the end, give him a hug and thank him. And like, yeah, that transition took 2 years. Like he spent 2 years just lying in bed feeling sorry for himself. But realize the sooner that you make a change, the more time you have in life to enjoy that change and that positivity. I just get goosebumps.
Well, on that note.